You are down with.
Yo, Dave.
What up?
Drop the beat.
We like it old school.
Tuesday night.
What you listening to?
The brothers from the 818.
91331.
Pacoima, California.
What's up, Dave?
What's up, Caleb? Real and relevant conversation.
No script.
We invite you into our conversation.
What's going on, people?
You are down with.
The brothers from the 818.
What's going on? What's going on? You are back with another episode right for you. My name is Dave. As you know, that's Caleb. We're back again to do it again, to give it to you one more again, because that's what's up. So hey y'all, we are back. Like I said, we got a real banging episode for you tonight. We got a special guest, but before we get into that, let's get into this. What's been going on with you, man? You said last week you was heading up to the snow. Tell me about that.
Yeah, man. I went up to the snow. It was a great time with the family, and then I just made a weekend of it. From there, I went from the snow, and then we hung out at the park with the neighbors in a small group. Right, it was just a family, and then we then went to Union Station and took the train down to Culver City, just to get out, just to try to have some sense of normalcy, some sense of something different. And so it was a great weekend because every day we did something different. How about you, brother?
All right. Well, this weekend was pretty mellow for me. I actually got a chance to get to the Pacoimas, man. I was out in our city. You mentioned the homeless population. I was coming down the 5/101 and got around to 170 and saw all the homeless encampments
Yes.
right off the freeway, and was like, wow. I mean, and it was massive. And there was even like an overpass that used to be a walking bridge, and it was just covered with tents and boxes and so forth. And I'm like, man, the city has changed. I actually hooked up with Chef Roxy.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Tell me about Roxy.
She wanted a hat. Last time we had the episode, she said she'll take a hat. So I told her you and I had signed a hat, and I wanted to get that to her. And then she was about to start delivering meals. And so I was like, well, I'm hungry, so let me get one of them up off you. And then made a donation from the brothers from the 818 so that she could, pass out a few extra meals to families that were needy, and et cetera. And we talked about some opportunities that, off air, we definitely going to chop it up about, because we're about to do some real partnership efforts with Happy Insides, and hopefully some of the resources she has to really expand what we can do in the community and our community, to make sure that just because we don't physically live there anymore, that we can't be a true positive brother from the 818. So that was a good experience.
Well, that's what we're about, man. We're about being impactful and making a difference in our community. We're without knowing that we would talk about the homeless encampments and the homeless issues in Los Angeles. It just went there because our conversation is natural, as if I picked up the phone and called you. And so it makes me think that maybe one day we need to get some experts that are dealing with and addressing some of the issues, or looking at some of the issues with the homeless, and we need to get them on too. Let's do it.
Yeah, you're reading my mind. Exactly. That's exactly what we're going after. Some of the homeless encampments, some of the food banks, some of the shelters. What can we do to raise awareness? Because there's actually people out there that are looking at places to fund. They're looking for places to sow some seed just so they can do some right, and they just don't hear enough about places that matter to us. So so we need to change that. We need to change that vibe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Let's make sure that happens.
We're going to jump right into this, but what I want to tell everybody, stay tuned after the podcast. I got a special video I want to show you. It's just a 2-minute video, but it's talking about some new merch we got, man. We actually have an official Brothers from the 818 logo that's customizable for whoever you are and wherever you're from. So it allows people to, rep their city, rep their location, rep their name, do whatever, and they're actually doing it using the Brothers from the 818 logo. So I want to show people that video and let them see what's up with that. And so we're going to play that right after the podcast. So don't go nowhere towards the end. You know what I'm saying?
That's what's up, man. I love it. We repping other people gear all the time. So why not our own? So yeah.
There it is. So man, today I'm kind of excited because part of my purpose in life is tied to who I am as a father, right? And I always take opportunities with my kids to explain to them what does it mean to be a father, what does it mean to be a man versus being male, how the fact that they were born with certain genitalia doesn't necessarily make them a man. That's their malehood. It's their manhood that comes out. And so a year ago, I went to a fatherhood conference that you invited me to. Thank you. And you introduced me to this brother that we're going to be talking to tonight. And I don't even want to say nothing else about him. I figure he could talk about himself a little better than I can. But his name is Alan Michael Graves. Brother Graves, can you hear me? You out there?
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
What's going on? Hey, Caleb, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Alan? How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
So before I let you introduce yourself, I got to bust you up a little bit, man. My name's David. I go by David. His name's Caleb. You go by Caleb. Who are you that you got two first names, man? Alan Michael. Tell us about Alan Michael Graves, man. What you got?
So my mom's been always one with the flair, and so she couldn't decide and hyphenated my first name, and there it is, right? So instead of Alan Michael being Alan and then Michael on the first middle name, she connected the two, and it's really one word. Alan Michael's my first name.
Okay. So nobody calls you Alan. Nobody calls you Michael.
They try. That's how I know who really knows me. Like if you holler Alan, it's with the exception of Caleb because he calls me Alan.
Right.
But if somebody calls on the phone and they say Alan, I'll be like, okay, bill collector. Say Alan, I'm like, they don't know who I am, right? So it works as a deterrent for me.
Right.
Hey, his mama named him Alan Michael. I'm gonna call him Alan Michael.
That reminds me, I don't want to talk too much. I want to let you get into it. When I first met Brother Ernest, you remember Ernest, Caleb?
Yeah.
We were at a conference or something, kind of like how we met, Alan Michael. And somebody said, "Oh, Ernest." Now, before I finish, Ernest is 6'3", 350, right? He looks like a teddy bear, but not the teddy bear you want to mess with, right? And so he's like, "Oh, Ernest, can I call you Ernie?" He says, "Not again." Right? I was like, okay. Note to self, let's not call him Ernie. But anyway, I digress, man. Brother Alan Michael, the floor is yours, man. Tell us about yourself.
So first of all, thanks for inviting me, man. It's a pleasure. I'm a fan of Caleb, and he talks a lot about you and a lot about your platform and your show. So I was eager and anxious to take part. Wow. My story, I tell my story so much that sometimes I go on autopilot. So I'm going to be very intentional today. I am the product of a strong, single Black mother. I love my mama. My mom had me when she was 15, and did the dance. She did her thing, right, in raising me. She sacrificed and continued to go to school. We were living in Southern California at the time, but probably, her and my dad, it didn't work out with them early on. And so we moved to Las Vegas. I had to be about 6. So moved to Las Vegas, spent my teenage adolescent years in Vegas, joined the military, went to college, went to ROTC, then went to college, then got out and, my last duty station was in Monterey, California. So I was in military intelligence, working at the Defense Language Institute for a while, and decided that it was time for me to get out of the service. Life showed up. I had 2 kids at that point, and became a single father. And got out of the military and started fatherhood. took a job in the hotel industry, started working at a hotel, and decided I wanted to go into law. So I went to law school. Halfway through that, transferred to Los Angeles for a job, and finished law school here in Los Angeles, and decided early on that, law wasn't for me. So I started doing public administration work because I had went back to school, and got my master's in public administration, and started to do some policy work around social issues, homelessness, education. Those were big ideas for me. Long story short, fell into working with low-income families around trauma at the Children's Institute, and did that for 13 years. And part of that was working underneath as a mentee to Dr. Herschel Swinger, who turned out to be a father figure for me and really taught me, even though my kids at that point were teenagers. So I got 3 kids. I got a 29-year-old, I got a 25-year-old, and don't judge me, I got a 6-year-old. And we so he just taught me a lot about being a father, things that you don't learn normally at work, right? Some of it was getting off work and going to his house in the evening, sitting around his kitchen table, and him just telling stories, and really talking about being a man. And he passed away, and I took over the realm at Project Fatherhood and started working with fathers. Along the journey, I am a scout leader. One of the things that saved my life early on as a child was my mom put me in Boy Scouts. It kept me off the streets, taught me some character and some value and some morals that different morals than I would have gotten in the streets. So as an adult, I promised myself that I would go back and pass it on to other kids. So my oldest son, my middle son is an Eagle Scout. My little one's a Cub Scout. And so we continue to give back through scouting. We feed the homeless once a week prior to COVID. We camp, we're outdoor people. But the bulk of my work today is around kids, right? And I learned probably about 10 years ago, well, I didn't learn, I thought that I might be able to impact the trajectory of kids through making sure that their dad was part of their lives, right? I told you I love my mama, and my mom did a fantastic job, if I say so myself, in raising me. But I have no doubt that if my father was in my life, things would have been a little different. Not better, not worse, just different, right? I would have had a different set of tools to navigate life, especially as a Black man. And so I want to give that opportunity to other kids. And so I spend the majority of my time trying to figure out how to include fathers in the lives of their kids, especially in systems that are not very father friendly to men of color. So that's me.
Wow. Okay. All right. So there's a couple different directions I'm gonna go. You said,
Yeah, man, because he gave us a lot, and so yeah, there's a lot there, and I was listening too. Like, where do we go from there? Because I learned a lot. I've been knowing you for more than 2 or 3 years now, and I didn't know some of the stuff that you shared, and so I was over here taking notes and trying to make sure that I capture some of it. But Dave, you wanted to also say something.
yeah. So you have a BA or BS, right?
Yes.
So which one?
Yes.
BS. So you have a BS. You have a master's in
Public administration.
So in MA, you have a JD, your Juris Doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, little birdie told me you have an EDD as well.
I do. So about 4 years ago, I was doing a lot of work with the city, and I was working with somebody who I really admire. Her name is Dr. Georgia Leap. She works a lot in the Watts area. She works in the housing, Jordan Downs, in the housing development. And she was working with Homeboy Industries at the time, and we were doing a lot of collaborative work with the city. And I'd be sitting at tables in the mayor's office and throwing out ideas on how we might combat violence and domestic violence and homelessness. And, we had fathers that were homeless. And so we were addressing all these issues, and I would make suggestions, and people would look at me like, give me the side eye. And then somebody else would make the same suggestion, or they would take my suggestion, and everybody in the room like, oh my God, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I'd be like, what the? right? And Georgia said, or Dr. Leap told me, she said, you know what, you need some more letters behind your name. And I've always been one of the behind the scenes person. So when Caleb says a lot that you hadn't heard, because I really like to work behind the scenes and make things happen.
Right.
And so that wasn't me, right? I wasn't up on titles. I'm not up on all the letters behind my name, but that happened so much that at one point I said, okay, when I called her and I said, you know what, I'm going to take you up on your offer. Cause she always said, if you decide to do it, let me know. She had me enroll in the School of Education at UCLA. And 3 years later, I received my doctorate. My doctorate's in educational leadership. And it goes to what my real passion is education, right? I know that we get nowhere without education. Now, we can make it, but things are a lot easier for us as people with education, and hence the letters behind your name.
I hear
love that, man. I love that.
Let me throw this out there. I'm gonna turn it over to Caleb for a second. When I was pursuing my master's, I couldn't wait to change my signature. Right as we were getting closer, I was like, I want that MAED at the end, and I put it up for like a week, and then I took it down. And somebody's like, "Why'd you take it down?" And I was like, "Well, look at my name. My name's David Smith. There's nothing really fascinating about my name, but if you look at David Smith, comma MAED." And the length of that, and you put that on a scale, my name outweighs my degree. So who I am has to outweigh what I do. And so as I go and pursue my doctorate, because my name will still outweigh, the length of my name will still outweigh the letters on my degree, it doesn't change. Now for you, right, Alan Michael Graves, you got a BS, you got a master's, you got a Juris Doctorate, you got an educational doctorate. Man, congratulations, because I think that's amazing, especially being a Black man. And I like the words you use. And when I hear people use fascinating words, I want to repeat them to them. One, so you can hear somebody else say it, right? And then two, so that when you ever are feeling like, man, today ain't my day, those words replay back in your head. And as you said, we can make it, but with education, it lightens that load. It makes it easier. It makes it more intent. It puts more purpose to it. And I think people need to hear that, right? Because the message is different now. You don't need education. You can just go get a job. You can do this, that, and the other. And they're right. You don't need it. But the fact that you have it opens doors. And those same words you use that somebody else used, and it got the applause and the acclaim, all of a sudden, now you put some letters behind your name, and that validates yourself to them, right? In your own mind, it doesn't change because you know who you are, right? Yeah. But it validates you to them.
And I, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm struggling with that. And Caleb will tell you, because I introduce myself a lot of times, I'm Alan Michael Graves. And some of especially my brothers and sisters, they'll be like, no, you introduce yourself as Dr. Graves. And for me, it's not about the title, but for them, they remind me, you worked hard for it. Two, if you were somebody else that didn't look like you, meaning you have your same skin color, not only would people expect it, they would require that they use their title. So you do that, right? But I want people to hear me as Alan Michael Graves before they hear Dr. Graves, because sometimes it's different, right? Alan Michael comes with lived experience. Yes. Dr. Graves is something I got from sitting in the classroom at UCLA, right? So I'm learning to merge the two, right? So make my name who I am, but utilize my degree to further what I'm trying to communicate, if that makes sense.
Just to open those doors. Caleb, before you go, you said last week, we were talking about, Alan Michael, we were talking about the political campaign and what just finished and so forth. And he was telling me that he was watching a clip or saw an article or something where one of the presidents, President Joe Biden, one of his colleagues was talking to him, and he was like, President Biden this, President Biden that. He was like, just call me Joe. And he says, no, you're the president. You've earned it, right? And so I agree with you 100%. It's you, Alan Michael, that are going to provide the history, the lesson, the oomph behind whatever words you speak. But those letters are going to open the door.
Absolutely.
So, don't ever hesitate to put them, as the battering ram, to use a spot from our location, to bust down that door so the real Alan Michael can get in there and speak. You know what I'm saying?
Hey man, you need to figure out which doors you're trying to open, because if he shows up and say, hey, I'm Dr. Alan Michael Graves, depending on which door he's in, he might not get that door to be open. So you guys making me want to go back and reconsider getting my doctorate, man. I've been saying for a long time, it's not in my cards, right? I have no interest in it. And I'm both of you are my senior, but I feel like I've been doing this for a long time. Maybe I'm older than Alan. I don't know. Now I'm looking at you. Let me look at you. I don't know. But we all have our journey, right? And Alan, you are a veteran, and you have your BS, your MA, your JD, your ED. Man, that is a lot of stuff, right? And I want to ask you, because you said, I know that you're a mama's boy, and I know that she raised you. And I heard you say you learned to be a father while you were working on the job under Dr. Herschel Swinger. Who did you look up to when you were growing up, a teenager, 15 years old, besides your mama?
My mama. No. No, really. No, I had some uncles, but because my mother was very young, and she's oldest, right? So her siblings were younger than her. So my uncles were almost my age, right? And so I didn't look up to them in a father figure way or a parental way. So, my mother's father, obviously my grandfather, was the closest to actually my mother's father and my father's father were men who I admired. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with them. So I tell people all the time, up until, I started doing this fatherhood work, I saw the world through the eyes of a Black woman. No masculinity tied to it. Situations that I encounter, I reacted how my mama or her girlfriends or my aunties would have reacted, or my grandma, right? My whole life through the military, through college, was through the blinders of a Black woman. And it wasn't until I started engaging with Black men and having real conversations that I was able to see life a little differently, right? Now I had already navigated it and done pretty well, right? But once that door was open, and mind you, I'd already had kids. My kids were teenagers at that point. So I had just muddled through that fatherhood thing for a long time, until I started fathering through the eyes of a Black man. And it's different, right? I'll stop.
No, that's drastically different. Caleb and I talk about often, we raised each other. We built each other up based upon our own lies. I tell a lie, he tell a lie, we compliment each other lies, and then we go try to make it true, right? And so, but he had both parents in the house. I had my mom, but really his parents were like my parents. I was always over his house. And so, and when he was over my house, my mom parented him too. That's just how it was in the Black community. And to a large degree, depending on what Black community you're in, how it is. And I would even go as far as to say how it should be. My mom raised me, and maybe this is similar, and I would love to hear your comment on it. She wanted me to celebrate her on Mother's Day and Father's Day. She would say, I am your mother and your father. When I was maybe 30, I broke her heart. I said, I can no longer celebrate Father's Day for you. And she said, why? I'm the only father you've ever known. I was like, maybe, but you're not equipped to be a father, right? I was like, you are a hell of a mother. You took mothering to levels that most women couldn't do, and I appreciate for all you do. But what you could never give me was the male experience, right? And so, that hurt her, but I didn't mean it to hurt her. I was just being as truthful as I could. So, how does that relate to you and your upbringing? As you said, you saw the world through the eyes of a Black woman, through the eyes of a Black mother, raising at 15 years old a young man, trying to do her best to instill values of manhood and et cetera, and whatever those values she put in you. Was she adequate for you as a male figure? Or did you have to find, in what Caleb and I term anti-influencers, meaning you grabbed nuggets from wherever you could go to get what you need? Tell me a little bit about that if you can.
So I'll start off by saying she did the best she could. She did the best she knew how, right? That said, I'd be lying if I didn't say there were some things missing, right? Especially as I went into to teenage years. My mother used to talk about, she used to teach me basic stuff like, this is how you walk into a room being the only Black, right? You hope you walk in with your head up and your shoulders back, and she used to walk through little lessons like that, right? But what I got to know is that it was even different than she was explaining it, because she was walking in that room as the only Black woman. There is a totally different scenario of walking into the room as an only Black man. She's less threatening, right? And I didn't learn that. I thought I had the lesson, and it wasn't until I was put in the situation and understood. It wasn't just like my mother had told me. So just like you guys, I took nuggets. And when I say my mom raised me and I didn't have a father figure, it was a village, right? Because again, she was 15, so, and she went back to school, so there was aunties and cousins and neighbors and my play cousins and my play aunties. I was raised by a village, but my mother was also very protective, and she wasn't going to let anybody influence me and make me into somebody that wasn't her child, right? And so she would be like, okay, you spending too much time with that person over there. I need to switch that up, right? You need a new babysitter, right? That's how she went. Into this day, watch the company you keep. You ain't friends with all them people at work. I have to tell her, Mom, I'm grown now. She'd be like, you don't let your friends come to your house from work. Your friends are your friends, your work friends are your work friends. That's my mama today, right? So she's still doing that. But to your point about your mom saying that she was both mom and dad, I have that argument a lot with people today, with women in the community who say, I want to be celebrated on Mother's and Father's Day. And I'll be like, I bet you are super mama, right? But you ain't no daddy, right? And it's better for your child for you to understand that, right? Because you need to allow their father to be their father and not discredit the fatherly role, right? And that's hard for somebody who, and in a lot of cases, it's women who the man left, right? But if it's about the child, you grow to understand, just like your mom did. I bet she was hurt initially, but she got it later on.
She was hurt initially, but I mean, she respected what I said. And because what she did is raise the man to speak his mind with respect.
There you go.
Right? Because her hands were the same size as mine, so she didn't hesitate to swing.
That's a whole other show.
Let me ask you this. So Caleb and I, people start talking about they're busy in their lives and their schedule, and me and Caleb just kind of snicker. All right? Because, I know I'm running from KC to KC. Caleb the same. I imagine, with your 4 degrees, 2 adult children and a 6-year-old, I'm judging just a little bit, man. Your day is kind of hectic. Tell me about a day in the life of Alan Michael, man.
So, and Caleb has said this before, man, how do you do that, right? And now it's just normal. But if you put it in, if I sit back and think about it, it is a pretty rough day, right? I'm up at 4, and that goes back to my military days. I get up at 4 and I do all my chores at the beginning of the day. So before my son opens his eyes, I've already washed the dishes, I've meal prepped, I've did our laundry, I've did the housework. I'm a single father, so I've done all of that before he even wakes up, right? Then the day starts, get him ready for school, and this Zoom thing is something else, right? Because I used to be able to drop him off and then do some more stuff, and now he's sitting right next to me while I'm doing a training on Zoom. He's doing his class, so it's really rough. But I do a lot of community work at the same time. I'm helping the old lady down at the church. I'm helping Pastor Jefferson out in Hawthorne. You and I had a conversation earlier, and I was telling you that, I haven't got to the point of complaining. I was slightly joking because I don't complain, because I truly, truly consider myself extremely blessed. And it's not until moments like this, when I reflect on how long my day is, that I then complain about it. But as I'm going through it, it's just what I'm supposed to do. I really believe that everything that's been put in front of me is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Because my son who's an Eagle Scout, he eagled out about 8 years ago, and all my friends are like, man, your son's an Eagle Scout now. Why are you still doing that Boy Scout stuff? Because there's some brothers who don't have daddies, who needs a scoutmaster to tell them a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. They need to hear that, and they need to hear that from somebody who looks like me, right? So I can leave it to the white man, but that's not who they need, right? And so although it's yet another night where I'm doing something, another weekend where I'm camping with boys, where I want to be at home because I'm too old to be laying on the ground sleeping in tents now. But but I do that because I think I've been put in this place for a reason.
You mentioned the scouts, and how do I say this without? I'm going to say it, and I'm not going to. I know I'm not going to offend you. I don't know any Black scouts that I grew up with, and maybe that's the reason why you are doing it. And you know, I have a 2-year-old at my knees now, and Dave, shame on you for judging Alan Michael for all of his busload of children. When you know that I also have a busload of children. I got my 28-year-old now, my 4-year-old, and my 2-year-old. My 2-year-old, my boy, man. I think I'm going to try to get him. I need to get him into something. And you just rolled off how many values? Because that seems like that's more values than the military. How many values are there?
12.
Wow. What kind of diversity do you see with the Scouts?
So there's not much at all, to be perfectly honest with you. In LA County, you know, I'm kind of a bigwig in scouting. So I'm what's called a district chair. So there's probably 60 troops underneath me, and about 3 of them are African Americans, right? The rest are Asian, white, a lot of white, but a lot more Asian and some Latinos, right? But I constantly, like, I just was doing a recruitment call recently at a West Angeles church, right? Because I know if not for scouting, some kids wouldn't have a place to go, right? And I got scouts sometimes that they'll join. I mean, like, this is the first time I ever left the city of LA. And we just went over to Monrovia, right? But they'll tell you, I've never been. And so fortunately, you know, I'm big on fundraising. So my boys, we hustle, we sell candy, we sell popcorn, we sell beef jerky, and we reap the benefits, right? We've been to Europe, we've been to Alaska. 2 years ago, we did a trip to DC, Philadelphia, New York. So I'm instilling life lessons in the scouting thing, right? So they learn how to fundraise and save money and budget for their airline tickets and their train tickets. And so, you know, yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
You mentioned you didn't know any scouts growing up. I don't even know if you know, but I was big into Boy Scouts back in Chicago.
Look there.
And so in Chicago, that's what's up. When I moved out here, that's the first thing I started looking for because that's all
Right.
I knew.
You tucked your shirt when you came to the West Coast, right?
Right.
Like, hey,
I got to Pacoima and started talking about where the scouts, and they was just like, you better come up with something else because that's not happening around here. So that died. But as I started having children, I began to look around and say, okay, what are the scouts doing? And I haven't found an area, I never lived in an area where the scouts were profound enough to make me want to divest my energy and put my son through those rituals, even though it was such a value to me. When I was in Chicago with it, I looked up and saw a man who looked like you, that I could identify with, that was a natural father figure, not out of obligation, but out of internal duty, right? And that's where I figure those valuable lessons came from. Like I said, as we grew up, I grew up with a single mom as well. And so it was really about the anti-influencers, those that you just go and borrow from because you see something else, right? I can look at my handwriting and tell you, I got my S from this, I got my R from this, I got my blah, blah, blah. I can look in the mirror and say my personality is a factor of these different experiences. And a lot of them are through men that I came across. Some I had a small opportunity to spend some time with. Honestly, a lot of it is Caleb, right? As I said, we built each other up because we were in the streets, but we had each other. And that's what's hard to find today. You entrust your kid to the streets, you don't know what they have out there. And my mama didn't know what I was doing out there, but I had Caleb, right? And he had me, and we protected each other and we lifted each other up. And I never had time to be low on self-esteem because he was high and vice versa. So when I look at you and say, you know, are you naturally high, man? I see that because, you know, of all that you do, like I said, no one's at 4 o'clock in the morning with a gun in your head saying, okay, let's get this done. This is your day. This is what you've chosen to do. So let's just get it done. And I applaud you for it, brother, on the real, especially with a young son at home. You know, you're starting over again, right? So let me ask you this. My oldest son told his brothers that you guys have a different dad than I had. He said the best way I can put the example to it, sometimes when you're making pancakes, you got to throw away that first one. It's a little crispy, it's a little burnt, but
Mhm.
you have to get it right so you can do the other ones perfectly, right? And he says, and I'm not saying I'm just thrown away. He says, but he made a lot of his mistakes with me so that he could be a better father with you. And that hurt my heart. It still does.
Yeah.
Do you ever have those conversations with your sons?
I believe that to my core, right? And not in a bad way. I do it like what I could tell the fathers we're working. We're doing the best we know how, right? With my oldest ones, I was a military guy. Everything was black and white. There is no gray. Yes, daddy, no daddy, right? With my youngest, he get away with murder, right? And they see it. They be like, now how did he do that? If I'd have done that when I was you would have. I think with age and with wisdom, I've learned that you don't have to be military daddy. You don't have to be, I mean, you can see some gray and everything will be okay. I think that's a benefit for my son, right?
There's discipline moments and there's teaching moments.
Yep.
And Caleb, honestly, I see that a lot in you in our conversations because I look at the relationship you have with your younger two, and the conversations we have about your oldest, and they're all love, but it's the lessons and the compassion are different. Your oldest is your baby girl. I know she'll always be, but the compassion level is different and always has been than what you have for your younger ones because you're just a different person now, right? And you've kind of been to the puppet show and you've seen the strings, and that teaching moment / compassion is a little stronger in you now than it was when you were, 20.
I think that people, all of your children get a different parent because the parent is evolving with the children, right? And I'm the baby of 10, right? And so just imagine how many evolutions, how many shifts there was in my mama and my daddy, right? Because my daddy was always, y'all said that y'all was raised by, well, the both of you have shared that you were raised by a single mama. Well, my daddy wasn't never around much because he was working. He had to provide for 10 boys. I mean, 8 boys, 2 girls, right? And so he was busy. And with my oldest, who's 28, I didn't have any money. I had different stressors. I was just trying to figure it out on the fly. And now I have some knowledge behind me, some experience behind me. And so, yeah, it is different, but it is different even between my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old because of the recency of being able to parent the 4-year-old through some challenges or through the first couple of years of her life, right? And so, yeah, it's very different. It gets me thinking. Go ahead, Alan.
No, I was just going to say, and I do this for work, but it always amazes me. How many of the brothers do we know get to have conversations like we just had about fatherhood like that? Yeah. How many of us carry around, like David, you say you felt bad. How many of us carry that around and never get to talk to anybody about it? Because that's not typically what we do. We talk about the 49ers and we don't talk about the feelings that we have about raising our kids. The brothers of the A18, I'm like, y'all doing the damn thing because this is so important. Creating a space where you have real conversations similar to what we do with the fathers that we work with in our groups, Caleb. This was deep for me.
Yeah. And that's one of the magic of what David and I try to bring to this podcast. And thank you for that, for recognizing that, because this conversation is the same conversation that we would be having if we were on the phone, right? But we're just recording it. You mentioned something about our groups and it struck a chord with me. Do you see much of a difference, a different challenges between a father raising their children today, me raising my children versus my father raising his children? Besides the racism and the discrimination stuff, are there very different challenges between the fathers today versus the fathers of yesterday?
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, the expectations different. we are and in some ways it's harder for us, right? Because we can no longer get away with what our fathers got away with, right? With I'm just working, right?
Right.
You can't do that no more. People don't, women don't fly for it, systems don't fly for it.
30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, men could just be a provider while their wives were at home being homemakers, raising the children. And today that doesn't fly. Today, right. I need to be a presence in my children's lives so they can see all of those aspects, and I can teach them work, family, life balance, right? And that becomes a challenge. So even when you look at yourself, Alan Michael, you know, running from 4 a.m. to whatever time you settle down, someone would look at you and be like, well, where's your work-life balance? But you know that, you know, again, if you're addressing against the balancing point, you got work, you got kids, you got social, you have, you know, try to get some own peace of mind of yourself, and you got to keep it in balance. And sometimes it's going to weigh heavy on one side, sometimes it's going to weigh heavy on the other. But that's the way that goes. Man, I wish we had more time. We are towards the end of our episode. Normally, we chop this up with a what you're listening to. Caleb, you don't mind, I'm gonna put a pause on that today. I'm gonna hit us all with a question. That's kind of, since we're talking about fatherhood, I want to hit us all with a question and just see where we take it. So you ready for this? You get to go first, Alan Michael, as our esteemed guest. 4 fathers in the Black community. The first one is James Evans. You know who James Evans is?
Good Times.
Okay. You got the picture from Good Times, the father from Good Times. Hardcore, you know, I'm the daddy, I said so, provider. You got Carl Winslow, right? He was the dad on the Urkel show. What was that?
Family Matters.
Family Matters. He was a dad on that. He was a police officer, loving guy, family man, you know, tried to be funny, but always tried to do the right thing for his family. They had a couple of deep episodes on that. Julius Rock. So Everybody Hates Chris, the dad.
Oh, yeah.
19 jobs, didn't want to spend money on anything. It's like, you know, you can look at a candle. You don't need to turn lights on, you know, spendthrift, but, you know, it was all about his family. And the last one's Uncle Phil, the sacrificial lamb that, you know, gave his all to raise someone who wasn't even his. And we saw a lot of father lessons through the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Which one are you?
E.
I'm sorry?
E.
E?
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay. All right.
No, seriously, there's a little bit of each one of them in the father who I am today. And that's intentional, right? I definitely can be James Evans, right? I'm Uncle Phil. He was the professional, but still trying to balance and taking care of not his child, but his child, right? Will became his child. You know, trying to I could see myself as Carl Winslow. Yeah, just a little bit of each one. I wouldn't say it was, I think I take a little bit each one of them and make up Daddy Alan Michael. I
like that, Daddy Alan Michael. Caleb, what about you? What do you think? Which one are you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that any of them really fits my mold. I'm the evolution of Caleb Beya is still in progress, and you know, there's been some times in which I was James Evans for sure, right? And what did Richard Pryor say about that monkey? And you will see him again, right? Because you know, sometimes you need to be able to say, hey, get your little butt over here, right? But also you need to teach your children love and compassion and be accessible and available to them as well. And I don't feel like James Evans was very accessible and available, and his children were going to run up to him and say, Daddy, I need to talk to you about something. I don't, you know, I feel terrible about this. And, you know, that little girl, that little boy broke my heart, you know, and was available in that way. And I want to be all of those things to all of my children, even my adults. She needs to call me up she needs to be able to call me up and say, Daddy, you know, I need your advice, or I got myself in some trouble. And for me to be like, well, you figure it out because you're an adult now. That's not going to work. That's not going to sit well with me in my heart. So how about you, Dave? Where do you land?
Definitely not E. I would like to claim that, but I think I have been each of those at certain times in life. I definitely started off as James Evans because that's what I knew, right? Firm hand and don't say anything twice. If I said it once, that was too many times. You should have been reading my mind as it is. I started there. I think I've more morphed into like a Carl Winslow. I want to have the ultimate in compassion for my kids, but know how to put my foot down when I need to. So I would say I'm more like that today. I don't care how much money I make. If ain't nobody in the room, turn the lights off, right? My girlfriend was saying tonight that if ain't nobody if you like to keep all the lights off in the house, but like it's a big house and ain't nobody in all these rooms. We don't need to, I know I can walk through my house in the dark, right? We can light up the room I'm in, but when I leave this room right here that I'm in, the lights will go off, and that's just the way it is. But there's a part of me that's about Uncle Phil as well, because I will give my all to.
I was going to say that
say anyone that
you don't like to keep the lights off. You like to save your money.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm a spendthrift. I don't spend things that I don't have to spend it on.
But do you guys think, because you guys both talked about it as an evolution, isn't it possible? Do you think it's possible to be a variation of each one of those every day? Because I find myself being James Evans in the morning and, kissing and loving him like crazy in the afternoon, right? And it just depends on what's going on at that point in the day of which one of those dads I need to be, not want to be, I need to be. Because sometimes Uncle Phil don't work if like this morning when you sitting in front of the Zoom and the teacher have to tell you turn your camera on again. Then I have to give him that James Evans look like, did you just hear that, teacher? Right? Because Uncle Phil's look wouldn't have worked, right? And so I think that changes even day by day.
That's called code switching, brother.
Yes, with your kids. It ain't just for work.
Yeah. Well, brother, we so I cannot tell you, we so appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. Like you said, like Caleb said, we appreciate the comment about the type of conversations we have. This is just what we do, but we got to do it with you, man. And we tell everybody every time, we don't do scripts. We don't share what we're going to talk about, but we're real brothers who like to have real conversations. And we appreciate the transparency, the realness, and that heartfelt drive that we see in you, and the example that you play for others. You said you got like 60 troops under you, and I'm a father like one to many, but you have legions under you, man, and they are looking for you for growth, for advancement, for opportunity, for advice, for encouraging word, maybe a hug, maybe a stern word. Children crave discipline. I don't care what anybody says. So, I'm sure you offer correction as necessary as well. So I just appreciate you being on, man.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And if there's any way that we can partner and collaborate on different projects that have to do with men being their best man, please let me know.
I'm gonna repeat that to you. Please let me know, man. You're right there in the trenches. You're right there in the fire, and you're definitely going to see opportunities where it's going to come up. Man, if I had a couple cats to help me out to do this, that, and the other, never let how busy you think we might be rob us of our opportunity to be a blessing for someone else.
Ditto.
Right.
I got you.
Alan, you are an example. A mentor, a teacher, coach. What's your title in the Boy Scouts? You are a scout leader, right? With the Scouts, right? But you're a leader in this community too. And more people need to see more people like you doing the damn thing, right? People need to realize that it's accessible. Like you could reach it, right? It's not outside of your reach. And you talked about your journey from the military to your first degree, to your second degree, to your third degree, right? And there's not enough examples out there, in my mind. And there's not enough. There needs to be more examples out there And so we're going to have you back. Maybe maybe in a year. Maybe we'll bring you on once every year, man, or sooner, whenever it takes. You know, you talked about your some of your early work in the homeless community, and that's what we started off our conversation with. And we never know where it's going to go. So we would love to have you back, man. Thank you for blessing us.
Anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. So you know how we do this. We want to thank Dr. Alan Michael Graves for blessing us tonight with his presence and just bringing the raw, the real, the relevant. You know how we do. So we are looking forward to just a continued collaboration, not only with Alan Michael, but with other community resources where Brothers from the 818 can be true to our mission of making sure that we're about the community, not just bringing it to the community. We want to be fed by and to provide food. So whatever we can do and however we can do it, we want to make sure that happens. So make sure you on YouTube and Facebook, you comment, like, and subscribe. For you Facebook out there, people out there, tell a friend, you know, let them know that there's a page out there called Brothers from the 818. We have our own website now, brothersfromthe818.com. You can follow us on all the social medias. This episode you can watch on YouTube, Facebook, like I said. You can also stream it while you're rolling in your whip. Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, whatever medium you use to get your information on your commute, we are there to deliver the raw, the real, the relevant. As I told you guys, there's a video I want you to watch. It's 2 minutes, and it's just talking about some new merchandise on our website that you can go to and check. So we're going to pause for the cause, and we're going to let that play right now. Check this out.
What's going on, people? This is Dave, as you know, from the Brothers from the 818. And I came here today to let you know that we got some new merch on the website. That's right, we got the official Brothers from the 818 logo, and it's completely customizable so you can rep your location. We got it in white for dark colors. We got it in dark for light colors. I'm going to show you how to do this using the dark one. So you just go ahead and click on the one that you want and scroll to the bottom and click the customize link. Once you go there, you'll be able to see the logo. Go ahead and click the text icon that's up in the upper left-hand corner. And from there, you'll just go ahead and type in whatever you want. For this example, I'm using nephew in all caps. You want to go ahead and adjust the font. Right now it's on Arial. I would adjust it to the fourth one there. It's like Anzogel or something like that. And put it in the middle. When you put it where it needs to be, it'll line up with crosshairs. You can size it up to the size you want. I like to fill up the space. And then once you're done with that, you want to go ahead and click the text icon again. And in doing that, it'll allow you to rep your location. So you can do the 818, you can do the 213, 209, 407, 201, wherever you're from. Go ahead and put that in the middle so the crosshairs line up, and then stretch it out, fill up that space. So in this example, what you see is we're doing the nephew from the 213. Next, you will select Get Price to select your size. In this case, I'm selecting an XL. Select one, click Add to Cart, and boom, there it is. You got it in your shopping cart. And in a few days, you'll have your very own customized Brothers from the 818 logo, repping whatever you want it to be. Check that out. We hope to see y'all soon on the Brothers from the 818. Peace.
What you think of that, Caleb?
I think it's dope, man. I'm going to go ahead and get some for some of my family members on the East Coast.
That's what's up. Tell them I'll send them a link. That's how I roll. For the rest of y'all, moment of silence for the queen, man, Cicely Tyson. She passed this week. Y'all stay safe out there. Peace out. One love from the Brothers from the 818.
Peace.
Peace.
You are down with
The Brothers from the 818.